and interference too.
We're on Daf Nem Zayin Amud Aleph by the Mishna, in the middle of the page. Maseches Gittin Bavli Daf. Someone who sells this field to a non-Jew, and we're obviously talking about an Eretz Yisrael. Every year you have to buy from the guy the first fruit, whatever the cost, and bring it to Yerushalayim to say Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam, Rashi explains, is that you shouldn't sell property in Eretz Yisrael to a non-Jew, to an idol worshiper, for an idol worshiper.
There's a lot of weird background noise. What is that? Is that coming from the lady?
Yeah, I think it's when you have two devices close to each other. Maybe David is right next to Baruch, so I just put his microphone on mute. The reason is because we don't want you to selling property in Eretz Yisrael to an Oved Kechovim, to an idol worshiper. So first of all, it's a knas. Second of all, it's a very big possibility you'll just buy the property back if you're going to have to buy the bikurim every single year. Omer Rabba, I'm in the Gemara now. Omer Rabba, Pichen Ken Oved Kechovim Eretz Yisrael. Alpha Pichen Kinyan Oved Kechovim Eretz Yisrael Afkir Midei Meiser. Even though they don't have a kinyan, if an Oved Kechovim buys property in Eretz Yisrael, it's still going to be chayiv meiser. So if a yid buys property, buys the fruits from him, he's going to have to separate. He's going to have to tithe it. It's to me. It says it's to me the kedushas audits. It doesn't matter if the non-Jew buys it or not. Nevertheless, he has the ability that he could do whatever he wants with the property and not plant. The land was given to man, so he could theoretically not. He could use it for whatever he wants. Gemara goes on. Rabbi Lazar says, "There's the Amira Rabbi Lazar. He holds that there is a kinyan for a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael to take away, to make an exemption when it comes to meiser tithing. It says you should take tithes from your crop, not the crop of a non-Jew. Nevertheless, he doesn't have the ability to do whatever he wants with it. He's going to have to. He's going to have to plant. He can't just dig holes in it. What's the crux of their machlekes? What's the aimik of their machlekes? According to Rabbi Lazar, it's the goncha, not the gan of Kechovim. The way Rabbi understands is diguncha, which means miruach, when he smooths the pile. If the guy does gemar malacha and he finishes heaping it up and smoothing it out, then it's going to be pater from meiser. But if the yid bought it while it was still b'shibolim, before it was made into the piles, then it's not going to be mufka from meiser. It's not going to be exempt from one meiser. So do you read it diguncha or diguncha? According to Rabbi, reads a diguncha. Only if he finishes making the piles are you going to be exempt from meiser. Omer Rabba. Obviously, this is the yisoid of heter mechira for shmita that you sell to non-Jew, but it's very problematic to do that. That means you're selling property to a non-Jew in Eretz Yisrael. That alone is a big problem. Omer Rabba. From where? What's my proof? What's my proof that a guy doesn't have a kinyan lafkim midei meiser while it's still attached to the ground? It's not. It says in the Mishna, halakit v'ashikha v'apeh shalav gechovim chayovim b'meiser. Lekit shikha and peah are when you didn't collect all the grain, or you forgot it, or you left the corn in your field. Normally it's hefker. Normally it's ownerless and it's pater from meiser. Someone who doesn't have it's hefker, it's ownerless. You're only give tithes to the Levite when he doesn't have a share in your possession, doesn't have a share in your field, so you give him a tithe. That's what the pasuk says. You have to give the Levi because he doesn't have a chilik v'nachla imach. However, in this case, by leket shechan peh, where he has an achla, he could take because it's hefker. It's potter. However, when it comes to leket shechan peh v'nevik kachavim, it's chayiv b'maiser. You have to separate the maiser. Elim kain hifker unless he was mafker. So the Gemara analyzes. What are we talking about? If you're going to say that we're talking about the leket shechan peh of the yid. And the non-Jew obviously took it, and he obviously then sold it to Yid. So the question is, if the Yid has to be master, the guy is not going to be master. So the question is, the Yid obviously got it from this guy who took the leket shechan peh. Alim kain hifker, you're going to say alim kain hifker unless he was mifker v'kain.
David, how do they describe Eretz?
What?
How do they define Eretz Yisrael? For example, today, is Gaza considered Eretz Yisrael?
Oh, that's a good question. What are the original boundaries of Israel? That's
because perhaps you could they don't have to tithe there because they're not.
Right, I think Gaza is not. I think Gaza
or you
is
could
not.
sell land to them, or perhaps.
Yeah, but we don't have any land in Gaza anymore.
Oh, we don't. Yeah, yeah, that's right. We used to.
Eilat is like discussion. It's a touchy subject. What's part of Eretz Yisrael or not? If you tell somebody living in Eilat it's not part of Eretz Yisrael, they get very offended.
Who gets offended?
People living there.
Oh, I see.
But you're right.
Not
Certain parts of modern Israel are not part of the ancient Israel, so they don't have Kedushas, Shemitah, and all these things.
A lot's not a part of biblical Eretz Yisrael. A lot.
I don't think so.
Oh, because they have Bedouin around there. They have non-Jews you could sell land to in that case.
If it's not part of Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to sell it to anybody. There is no Shemitah if it's not in Eretz Yisrael.
Oh, there's no Shemitah.
And no Maisos either. We don't do Maisos in Canada.
That's right. That's interesting.
The only thing we have is Arla. Arla is the one thing that we do.
Oh, we do Arla here, outside of. So if we have apple trees or whatever it is, we have to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
Here.
So the Gemara says, we're back in the Gemara. Let's go further. Elim Ken Hifker, you're going to tell me that we're talking about leket shechan and peh that a non-Jew took hold of. So why are we saying Elim Ken Hifker? It's chayiv and maisros unless Hifker. Hifker v'kaim. He took it from the Yid. The Yid was mafker. The Yid was mafker. It was originally Hefker. That's how the guy took a hold of it. So what do you mean Elim Ken Hifker? It was Hefker from the beginning. Of course, it should be potter from Trumas and Maisos. And the law of David Kechovim. We're obviously talking about that. We're talking about it was a leket shechan peh of a guy and a Yid. The Yid picked it. So he basically learned. Well, why is he leaving leket shechan peh? What's a non-Jew doing? Rashi says he has a custom. He had the custom to do like it. Maybe he lived around them. He liked it or whatever. But because he's not chayiv to do leket shechan and peh, so it's not considered leket shechan and peh unless he was mafker. Unless he mamish said it's hefker. But if he just did it because whatever was a nice thing to do, then it's not considered. It's not considered leket shechan peh. His leket shechan peh is not considered hefker. Says the Gemara, time at the hifker, it's only because he was mafker. Leifker chayiv. If he wasn't mafker, it's chayiv. So here's a raya. Here's a big proof for Rabbah that a non-Jew's field is chayiv in maisros, unless he was mafker, unless he declared it ownerless. Says the Gemara, we're talking about it belonged to a Yid. The non-Jew picked it. This that you said that it's hefker. Even though he declared it ownerless for a Yid, did he declare it ownerless for a non-Jew? So therefore, it's still chayiv in maisros. Because he doesn't declare it ownerless for the non-Jew. Okay, interesting. So we don't have a proof from there for, not necessarily do we have a proof from there for Rabbo. Rather, we could say it belonged to the Yid. The reason why it's still Chayiv and Maasros is because he wasn't mafgrid for the Goy, unless he specifically says, oh, you can have it. I don't know if he's allowed to do that. I don't know if the Yid's allowed to tell a Goy you can have it. Probably because of Darkei Shalom. Yeah, I think because of peace, we let him with it. We let him.
Well, what's that again? What did you say about the hefker?
No, when a non-Jew takes your leket shechan peyot, it wasn't meant for him. It was meant for the Yid. So it's still going to be chayiv in Trumas Maasros if a Yid buys it from the Goy.
If a Yid
You're not going to take it back from him. You're not going to make a whole fight. But if a Yid buys it from the Goy, you're going to still have to take out Trumas Maasros.
Okay, so the Jew.
What?
Yeah. The Jew has to take. Okay.
Yeah, the Jew's going to have to take it. Okay, the next part, the next raya, Toshma coming here. Yisrael shalokach sadam evekachavim. A Yid buys a field from a guy. Actually, this wish before it grew even a third, which is like the minimum of growth. So he bought it from him at an early stage. It was already planted, and then he sold it back after it reached a third. It's chayiv in Meiser because it became mechuyev under him. Rashi says tvu and zaysim, wheat and olives, after it reaches a shlish, it's already considered food. So because it reached chiyuv under the Yid, that's why you're going to have to take off Trumas Meiser. So if you buy it from the Goy, buy the produce from the Goy, anyone who buys it is going to have to separate Trumas Meiser. In it's only if it grew a third under the Yid. But if it didn't grow a third under the Yid, it's going to be potter. This is again a raya for Rabba. So
well, in the case of olives, you can't eat them at all, and even when they're fully developed. So how can they say that a third of it is like it's considered?
I guess you could maybe use it for oil.
Oh, for oil, perhaps. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. But
so
try eating an olive from a tree when you're in Eretz Yisrael. It's not very good. Straight from the tree.
It's saying first you have to pickle it and stuff.
I think they leave it out in the sun, and
you leave it out in the sun. Interesting.
Yeah, the old days. I guess they have other ways of doing it now.
So maybe you could do that also when it reaches a third, or maybe it's for oil. Probably it's for oil.
Yes, probably.
That's like the minimum.
So
the Gemara goes on. It says like this. Here we're talking about in Syria. Syria was conquered by David HaMelech, and it was not a real conquering. So because David had conquered it for himself before he conquered the rest of Eretz Yisrael, it's considered kibush yochid. And it's only midrabanan. Rabbinically, the Chacham said you have to give meiser, but not minat Torah. So if a guy grows a field there, you're going to be potter from meiser.
So
however, I feel that's because the Brisa should have told us that. I mean, if that's a very, very important detail, why would they leave that out? Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. I guess
Ramat Golan was captured from Syria, right, in 1967. So does that mean it's not a part of Israel?
I think it all depends on the ancient boundaries.
Oh, the ancient boundaries, yes.
It's not the modern. Toshma, another raya. We're on the second to last line of Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. Yisrael ve'evekachavim shalok l'sadar b'shutfus. If a Yid and a Goy bought a field with partnership, so what's the deal? What happens? You have to do tithes or not? Rabbi says every single grain of wheat, kernel of wheat, is half tevel and half chulin. Part of the Goy is exempt, and the part of the Yid is chayiv. Let's say they split up the tevuah. So basically, you have a problem. Even if they split it up, you can't do that because each piece of wheat is half. You're going to have to tithe it, but you can't tithe it from somewhere else. It has to be from this situation, from here, Dafka, from this wheat. You have to do the type because you can't take from potter al potter, so you're gonna have to take specifically from this wheat on this wheat. Shmuel says you could be bechalik. He holds yes, breda. You could retroactively say this half of the field belonged to the yid and this half belonged to the guy. Okay. Says the Gemara is analyzing. Adkan lepligi the marsavar yes breda marsavar ain breda. Homochlekes is, can you retroactively separate your half from his half? Everybody says, however, that the guy's half is exempt, which causes all the issue. The Gemara says the same answer that we said before. Like we said before, that we're talking about in Syria, there a guy is able to have his field be potter from mice. Okay, that's the raya. Chia Barovin brings from our Mishna, Toshma. Someone who sells his field to a go, you have to buy the bikurim from him because of tikkun oilam. Tikkun oilam in midaraisa loy. It's only tikkun oilam. It's purely tikkun oilam, but not midaraisa. Says Rashi, very beautiful explanation. He says like this: bikurim is chayvus gavra. It's an obligation on the person. It's not like tevel. Tevel is you have to tithe. Anyone who wants to eat the fruits will have to tithe the field. So Mamela Tevel will say, Maestros will say, anyone who buys it from the guy will have to separate the Trumas and Maestros. But when it comes to Bikurim, if it was a Chi of Deraisa, it would be your responsibility. From the fact that we don't say that. From the fact that we just say that you have to do Bikurim because of Tikkun Oilam. It's a raya that when a guy buys a field, it's exempt from everything. It's just that you have a knas. It's a fine because you sold it to him. But Ravashi answers like this. Shtei takonos hayu. There are two takonos. Mekora have a maisi midorais. In the beginning, they would bring, because there was a chiv midorais. According to Abba, so there was a chiv midorais. Given the chozu the makri of mazbene, the savri b'kedusha sayu kaima. Because they saw that they would sell their fields because they held the Mikdashai, it's still Kaddish. We're not going to get punished for selling our field to the guy because they would still bring the Bikurim. They felt it was still Kaddish. Everyone who's going to buy the produce from the guy is going to separate the Trumas and Maestros. So it's not a big deal. So they would separate the Bikurim. They would do Bikurim. So they made it a takana not to bring the Bikurim so that you feel that you're losing out on the Kedusha Sasada. You're losing out on the Kedusha of the field. Don't bring the Bikurim. Even though you're chayiv in the Raisa, how could the Chum take away from a mitzvah deraisa? They have that koyach to do shavel tasa. Don't do it because they felt if you're not going to do it, you're going to feel the field is losing on its kedusha. Given the chosa, when the Chum saw the mandale stagi le mazbin v'kom b'shtaken b'yad. But if what?
If the field belongs to a goy, that individual doesn't want you to take fruit from the field. It no longer belongs to the Jew, right? So you can't just bring it. You know what I mean? You can't just go on the field and take fruit from it.
He explains like this: if you're going to say that the goyim don't have the koyach to be mafkia midei meiser, to take you away from the chi of the obligation of meiser, that means you didn't really sell him the field. That means the field theoretically still belongs to you. It's just that you gave it to him as collateral, as a mashkin. So therefore, you have the obligation to redeem it. You have to pay him for it. Literally a mitzvah on. It's a mitzvah on you to bring the bikurim. The mitzvah hasn't left you. The field hasn't left your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, everybody would bring bikurim, but they felt good about it. They said, "Oh, the field's still kaddish." Given the chazu, So therefore, it's kina lahu deloyle. But they said, don't bring. Given the chos of demand sagile mazbin v'kumishtakim biyad gechavim. When they said that when they saw a person who doesn't have the money would sell, then he no longer brought the bikurim, so he no longer felt a connection to the field, and he wouldn't redeem it. So then they said you actually should bring bikurim, but it's not tikkun olam. It's really midaraisa. It's just that they took away the first sakana. Okay, Itmar was stated. What if you sell your field just for fruits? Rashi explains like this. If you sell your field for the fruits, for example, that the buyer should be able to eat the produce for 10 years and then you'll get the land back. We're talking about when there's no yovel. From when Reuben, Gad, and Chatiship Menashe were Galu through Sanchedev. If you're going to say yovel during the time of yovel, every sale was for the fruits because every sale was only until yovel, so no sale was permanent. Here we're talking about because there's no permanent sales. You sold it for there is a permanent sale. Sorry, you could theoretically sell permanently. Instead, you sold the lepedus. Rabbi Yochanan number Mevi v'koida. Rabbi Yochanan says the person who bought it will bring and he'll read the bikurim. Shalkish says he won't read it. If you're buying the field, says if you're buying the fruits, it's also as if you bought the field. So you have the chiyuv, you have the full obligation to bring the bikurim. This is all a theoretical question. And Shalkish's times there was no bikurim. Shalkish Amar. Shalkish Amar maybe koida. You bring and you don't say the psukim. Because it's not like kinyan aguf. Wait for the Rabbi Shlokish. Rabbi Yochanan asked the question from Shlokish. It says the pasuk says should be happy with everything, all the good that you've gotten, and to your house. Maybe you could even bring the bikurim of your wife. And obviously, what's the bikurim of your wife? It's only paid. It's only while you're married that you have it. She actually owns the property. So just like by your wife, it's considered yours. So if you rent a field for the paydas, it will also be considered yours for you to bring the bikurim. Shalkish said, Pasuk tells us of the Beisecha. So the Pasuk is marbe, includes your wife's. Specifically your wife's, but anything else is not. Some people say it was a question from Rishlokis. It's only your wife and not anywhere else. He said, that's my whole right. From Levisecha, I hold that it's a makir, it's a source, it's not an exclusion, it's not telling you only your wife. Pasuk is being marba, everything similar to that. Anything that's being rented. There's a question. Somebody was traveling and he was holding his bikurim of his wife to do it for his wife. And then he heard that his wife passed away. Mevi v'koida. Then he could be mevi v'koida. It sounds like only if she died, mevi v'koida. But if she didn't die, not even for your wife. Not even for your wife. You're not going to read and bring and read. Really, even if she doesn't die, you're allowed to bring and read it. Even if she dies. Maybe if she dies, we shouldn't do it. Let's say you did the betzira, you harvested your vines, you sent it in the hand of a shlich and a shlich died. Maybe v'nekoida. Even if you yourself are going to bring it, we can't say the psukim. Why? You have to take it and bring it together. In other words, the same person has to take it and bring it. So if Shliach took it, it's not like and you're bringing it, that's not considered l'kicha b'ava b'echad. So you might think that also in this case, because you took it out for your wife when she was alive and all of a sudden she died, maybe it's considered like two separate, one l'kicha, one hava, because now it's fully yours. Kamash below, and that it's fine. Okay, the Gemara goes further. Both Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan are going according to the reasonings. Itmar was stated, someone who sells a field during the time of Yovel, and then every sale during the time of Yovel was considered just for the paytis, because you get the field back after Yovel, by the Yovel. Rabbi Yochanan says you bring and you read the psukim. Shalkish says you don't. You don't read the psukim only if it's mamish your field from your shevet. According to Rabbi Yochanan, if you buy the paytis, it's like buying the property itself. But they need to argue both in the time of Yovel and both when you're doing a rental when it's not the time of Yovel. Maybe only in the case of where you mamish did a rental for paytis, then you have, according to Rish Lakish, there it's only for the paytis. You literally only made you rented it for the fruit. So there it may be very kind of but here by Yovel, where your mamish buying the field, it's just as it's going to go back during Yovel. Maybe he'll admit to Rabbi Yochanan that maybe v'koyda. If you're going to say in the case of rental, maybe only over there, Rabbi Yochanan will say no. If you can say in the case of the Yovel, over here it says Rabbi Yochanan, but in the case of the rental, maybe he'll admit with Rish Lakish. And maybe they equated. That's what we need both. Okay, Toshma coming here. Someone who buys a tree together with the property, maybe v'koida. So this is a question on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, even if it's just paytas, you're maybe v'koida. So here it sounds like you have to have the karka, you have to own the property. Where was it? Toshma Akoni Elon Vakakoi, maybe Vakoida. My skin was on Shavna Yovel Noik. So because it's a time when there's no Yovel, not sure I understand. Okay, again. Hakoina ilam v'kakoi maybe v'koida. Says if you buy a tree together with the property, maybe v'koida. So the question is, it sounds like maybe v'koida only if you have the karka.
What's maybe v'kora?
You bring the fruits, the first fruits, and you read the psukim. You read the psukim that you have to read when you bring the bikurim to the bikurim. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, he says, "Ameicher sadeu lepedis maybe v'koida." Rish Lakish says maybe ve'ena koida. That you bring and you don't read the psukim. You can bring the bikurim, but you don't read the psukim. So how could Rish Lakish say "Hakoina ilan v'kakoi maybe v'koida"? It's a question on Rish Lakish. How could Rish Lakish say "Hakoina ilan v'kakoi maybe v'koida" if he holds there is no such thing as buying a field and reading and saying the psukim? It's a question on Rish Lakish. How there's no such thing? So the Gemara answers, he's talking about when there's no yovel. If there'd be yovel, Enochanami says it's impossible when you buy a field to say the psukim. If it's time when there's no yovel, then it is possible. And obviously, I mean, I guess you could say there's a question of Rabbi Yochanan. Why does it say Hakohen Ilan V'Karkoi? Theoretically, even if you just buy the tree, but it's not a question. It's a question of just luckish. Toshma, I think so. Toshma coming here. Somebody who buys 2 trees in your friend's field, you bring it and you don't say the psukim. You bring the bikurim, but you don't say the psukim. Maybe v'koyda. If you would have 3, then you're going to the karka. You're going to maybe v'koyda. And again, it's a question on Reish Lakish. It's talking about when there's no yovel. That's why he says if you buy 3 trees, maybe v'koyda. Theoretically, could also all these questions could be another question around Rabbi Yochanan the other way. Toshma, oh no, sorry. Sorry, I just read that.
Yeah, just read it.
Now that Rav Chisda said that the whole machlokes Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan is only in the second yovel that they were used to returning the property, so they realized that they're going to return the property. But the very first yovel, divra koil maybe v'koyda. The very first yovel, everybody will say maybe v'koyda because you're not saying das. It's not a question. One is in the first yovel, one is in the second yovel. In other words, the first yovel you're able to make a sale according to Reish Lakish, and the second yovel you're not able to make a sale. The Gemara says like this. Let us say this is the same machlokes that we have machlokes tanoi. If you buy a field from your father, you're makdish it, you sanctified. Oh, shoot. Okay, so I actually have to stop now. And tomorrow, I guess we'll finish the parak and we'll do all the Yushalmis.
David, I have a dumb question. How does all this tie in with get isha? The bikurim and
No, it's a very good question. The answer is we started off a few Mishnas ago, 3 Mishnas ago, saying that if you divorce your wife because she made nadarim, you can't marry her again, or because of like so that because of tikkun olam, it's takanus chachamim. So once we started talking about takanus chachamim, we continue with takanus chachamim over here. In different matters.
oh.
Okay, bye. Take care of it.